You're hearing a story that was never meant for the public. A story stitched together from leaks, deleted observatory logs, and testimonies whispered by people who later vanished. If any part of what you're about to hear makes your heart race, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, because the deeper we go, the darker it gets. It began with a single cold spark against the blackness, first spotted by the Atlas survey in Hawaii. At a distance of hundreds of millions of miles, it looked harmless, just another rock wandering through the void. But Dr. Samuel Hayes felt something tightened in his gut the moment he read the first preliminary data. He couldn't explain why. It wasn't fear, not exactly. More like the sensation of a key turning in a lock no one remembered installing. The object was designated 3I8LAs, the third known interstellar visitor. But unlike the others, this one refused to behave. There was no glowing tail, no plume of dust evaporating from its surface. Nothing to suggest it was a normal comet. Instead, it shone with a steady, unnatural blue. Not bright, just steady, as though something inside it was controlling the output. Atlas isn't reflecting sunlight, Samuel murmured as he zoomed in on the spectral analysis. It's emitting. The other researchers laughed at the idea. Instruments glitch all the time. Software misreads. Calibration errors. But as the days passed, the error remained consistent. The blue wavelength never shifted. It pulsed faintly every 19 hours. A rhythm too regular to ignore. That was when Dr. Evelyn Cross joined the investigation. Evelyn, an expert in neural pattern analysis at MIT, was the last person you'd expect to bring in for an astronomical anomaly. Yet someone at NASA noticed that the pulsing interval resembled a kind of structured signal, something that looked eerily like a firing sequence in the human brain. When Evelyn reviewed the data, she froze. "This isn't a natural pulse," she said quietly. "This is an activation cycle." Samuel felt a chill. The room suddenly seemed too small, the lights too bright. "Activation of what?" "That," Evelyn replied, "is what worries me." The next morning, Atlas changed speed. It didn't accelerate gradually, its trajectory simply shifted, as though it had made a decision. Observatories across the world scrambled to confirm it. News outlets speculated about unknown physics, solar wind pockets, or invisible but the truth was simpler and infinitely more terrifying. Atlas wasn't being pushed, it was steering. The first person to publicly claim this was Dr. Helena Moore, a veteran astronomer known for her bluntness. In an interview aired only once, before being mysteriously scrubbed from the network's archives, Moore stared at the camera with hollow eyes and said, "If something is steering, then something is inside." She was right. Days later, Atlas's light flickered again, but this time, the pulse was longer, stronger. Samuel and Evelyn ran the latest spectrum through every decoding tool they had, from radio translation software to neural frequency models. What emerged wasn't language, but it also wasn't noise. It was intent. "Someone or something is waking up," Evelyn whispered. Samuel stared at her. "Inside the object. Inside the comet." "It's not a comet." She tapped the processed "It's metal." The words sank into Samuel's mind like a stone falling into deep water. His breath hitched. Atlas had always looked clean to no dust trail, no organic signature, no visible irregularities. He had chalked it up to interstellar erosion. But metal, that was different. Metal meant construction. Construction meant purpose, and purpose rarely traveled alone. A private meeting was called at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Evelyn and Samuel flew there under non-disclosure orders, so strict they weren't allowed to bring their own laptops. They entered a dark room, illuminated by a single screen displaying the rotating image of Atlas. Even blown up on a wall-sized projection, the object revealed nothing oozed a smooth obsidian shape with faint crystalline veining, as if crafted rather than born. A General Samuel, never learned his name, spoke first. "You two have been analyzing the internal pulse. We need to know, are we looking at a threat?" "I don't know," Evelyn said truthfully, "but whatever's inside, it is no longer dormant." Samuel saw that many in the room were trying to hide their fear. Military officers clenched their jaws. Scientists stared too hard at their notes. The atmosphere hummed with the silent acknowledgement of a truth none of them wanted to say aloud. Humanity was unprepared. The general leaned forward. If Atlas is artificial, we need contingency plans. Evelyn's voice cracked. How do you prepare for something that crossed between stars? Silenze. Then the room shook. The screen flickered as Atlas released a surge, its pulse suddenly visible, even to small backyard telescopes across the world. It was brighter than ever, an azure flash cutting through the darkness of space like a blade. Samuel's hand trembled as he refreshed the data feed. The readings were impossible. Atlas's internal temperature spiked, its magnetic field intensified. There was a vibration faint, but measurable, rolling outward as if something inside were testing its restraints. Tell me that's natural, the general demanded. It's not, Evelyn said, her voice hollow. This is behavior. Samuel leaned in close to the monitor. For a moment, he thought he saw a shape, a faint geometric pattern beneath the outer shell, glowing like circuitry waking from a long sleep. Atlas is opening, he whispered. The room erupted into chaos. People shouted orders. Communication lines buzzed. The live feed jittered as if overwhelmed by what it was capturing. Samuel could feel his pulse in his throat. His mind raced, imagining something vast and ancient stretching inside that shell, unfurling like a creature that had slept for millions of years. And then the feed went black. Every telescope worldwide suddenly lost visual access at the same instant. Not a glitch, not interference. Something had blocked it deliberately. An icy dread spread through Samuel as the room fell into stunned silence. If you're still watching this, a voice echoed in his mind, his imagination. He hoped. Make sure to like and subscribe. Stories like this, they don't stay online for long. Hours later, a backup feed restored the view. Atlas was no longer a dot. It was changing shape. The shell had begun to fracture, not in random cracks, but in perfect symmetrical lines radiating from its core. Like petals or doors, but no scientist, no government, no agency could tell whether something was trying to get out, or whether something inside was preparing to let something else in. Samuel turned to Evelyn. Her face was drained of color. She whispered, "This is only the beginning." And as Atlas rotated, one of the fractures widened, just enough to reveal a glow, unlike anything humans had. Cynosylum, pulsing heartbeat of alien machinery. The stranger had entered the solar system, and it was waking up. The whisper came at 3:14 a.m., not the kind of whisper a human voice could make too thin, too stretched, as if the sound was slipping through a crack in reality. The night shift at Observation Station 07 had grown used to silence, to the slow mechanical hum of cooling systems and the faint rattling of old ventilation shafts. But this sound didn't belong. "Did you hear that?" Oliver Grant asked, without looking away from the monitor. His voice was low, almost ashamed of breaking the stillness. "Probably interference," Mia Torres muttered as she sipped cold coffee from a chipped black mug. She was the more pragmatic of the two, an engineer whose belief in anomalies began and ended with faulty equipment. Yet even she frowned as the sound repeated soft, wavering, almost pleading. Oliver raised a hand. "S-H-H listen." They leaned toward the speakers. Across the room, the old steel walls reflected their tension. There it was again, a shiver of noise, threaded through static like breath across glass. It almost felt alive. A chill crawled up Mia's arms. "Where's it coming from?" Oliver swallowed hard. "Atlas." The room seemed to contract around the name. For days, the entire scientific community had watched Atlas approach the sun, shedding more mysteries than answers. Its pulses, its behavior, its impossible structure, everything about it felt like the prelude to something bigger, something no one wanted to say aloud. Mia pulled up the raw data stream. Okay. Let's not jump to conclusions. It might be solar interference, or the antenna array is misaligned again. You know how the heat messes with the boards. But her voice trembled. She wasn't convinced. Oliver amplified the signal. The whisper grew louder, forming a faint shape like syllables chewed apart by static. Not language, not sound. Something in between. Mia set her mug down. That's not natural, not random either. Oliver Pau said, "Should I notify Central?" "Not yet," she snapped too quickly. "Let's analyze it first. If it turns out to be a glitch, they'll bury us in paperwork." Oliver didn't argue. He let the recording loop as he ran it through spectral filters. As the layers peeled back, the whisper thickened, gaining weight, texture. It rose and fell in a pattern, almost a breath, almost a word. Then the console flickered. Oliver's heart stopped. The waveform on-screen condensed, pulling into 3 distinct peaks, each spaced with mechanical precision. Silence. Then 3 again, perfectly aligned. Mia's face drained of color. No way. That's structured like a countdown. Oliver whispered, or a greeting. Before either could speak again, the signal cut off. The room fell silent, except for their breathing. Sharp and uneven. Mia saved the file with shaking fingers, naming it automatically Whisper_01. "You're hearing the story the government hoped no one would notice," Oliver muttered under his breath. "If anyone is watching this later, like and subscribe for more before they scrub it all." Mia elbowed him, but she didn't smile. She knew he wasn't joking. 72 hours passed before the whisper returned. By then, Station 07 had become a pressure chamber. More personnel arrived, linguists, astrophysicists, codebreakers, every hallway filled with the scent of exhaustion and cold metal. The signal had been sent to NASA and black-boxed within minutes, but word still spread. Everyone felt it. Something was coming. Evelyn Cross arrived on the second day. Her eyes were ringed with fatigue, her hair pulled into a loose knot that had clearly been redone in the back of a moving car. Samuel Hayes arrived with her, pacing with the restless energy of someone who had slept 3 hours across 2 nights. They entered the main control room without speaking, the technicians stepping aside as if sensing the weight they carried. "Show us the recording," Evelyn said. Oliver complied. Whisper_01 filled the room. The lights seemed to dim with it, as though the station itself leaned in to listen. Samuel exhaled slowly. "It's the same rhythmic interval Atlas showed before the fractures appeared." "You think it's connected?" Mia asked. "I think," Evelyn answered, "that Atlas isn't just sending data. It's learning." A hush fell over the room. Learning. The word tasted dangerous. Evelyn pulled up her own files, a comparison chart, mapping neural activation frequencies to the pulse patterns from Atlas. Almost everyone leaned forward, and the resemblance was uncanny. Not identical, but parallel, as if Atlas were mirroring the structure of biological communication. "You're saying it's alive?" Oliver whispered. "I'm saying it behaves like a mind," Evelyn said. "Or a network." Before more questions could erupt, the speakers crackled. Everyone froze. A new signal was arriving. The lights flickered. The air tasted metallic, the kind of taste that comes just before a lightning storm. The hum of the station deepened, as if the power grid were bracing itself. Static washed through the speakers in a violent wave, but beneath it was something else. A beat, a murmur, and then words. Not English, not any language on Earth. But this time, the structure was unmistakable. Rising tones, falling tones, repeated phrases, distinct intervals. Meaning, Oliver's jaw dropped. "It's speaking." Evelyn pressed a hand to her forehead, her breath trembling. "It's not speaking. It's transmitting." "This is a deliberate broadcast," Samuel's voice cracked. "From inside the object, from inside Atlas," Evelyn confirmed. The room erupted into activity, keyboards clacking, programs running, printers spitting out lines of incomprehensible symbols. The signal repeated itself every 40 seconds. Unwavering, almost patient, like a knock on a door. For hours they worked without pause. The signal mapped itself into spirals, geometric patterns, numeric It wasn't random. It wasn't noise. It was systematic, purposeful, mensaje. When Evelyn overlaid the new signal with whisper_01, the room fell silent. The two files fit together, one filling the gaps of the other. Whisper_01 was not a message. It was a primer, a warm-up, a calibration. Atlas had been tuning itself. It's learning how to talk to us, Evelyn said, goosebumps rising across her arms. Samuel leaned close to the or learning how we talk. What does it want? Mia whispered. Oliver shook his head. If you're still listening to this story, like the video. Subscribe. Because if this is what I think it is, no one else will dare keep it online. No one laughed this time. Because in the next cycle, the signal changed. Not drastically. Not dramatically. Just one shift. One new sound. A sound that didn't belong in any pattern before it. A sound that matched a human vowel. Samuel's grip tightened on the desk. It's copying us. Evelyn nodded slowly, dread hollowing her features, which means Atlas isn't just learning. It's responding. The next transmission was even clearer, rising in a way that sounded eerily like a question. A question aimed at humanity, but before anyone could process it, something else happened, something far worse. Another signal arrived. From a second source, not Atlas. Something behind it. Something further out. A low, thunderous frequency that shook the station lights and rattled every piece of glass in the room. The technicians dove for stabilizers. Alarms erupted across every board, and static washed through every channel. Evelyn's face turned white. Oh God, she whispered. Atlas wasn't calling us. Samuel's voice cracked. Then, who was it calling? The lights went out. The speakers went silent, and somewhere in the blackness of space, an answer was coming. The first thing Dr. Evelyn Cross noticed that morning wasn't the cold metallic scent of the lab, nor the soft electric hum from the neurosensory monitors. It was the stillness, a strange, unnatural stillness, as if the air itself were holding its breath. She paused in the doorway of the deep space analysis wing, her badge still half-raised toward the scanner. Behind her, the bright, sterile corridor of NASA's JPL faded into muted silence. In front of her, every workstation was occupied, yet no one spoke. No keyboards clacked. No printers hummed. A dozen of the world's most brilliant scientists stared at a single holoscreen suspended above the central table. And on that screen was Atlas, not Tomei. Not the comet, but something else entirely. A vessel of ice and metal and silence, drifting through space with the serenity of a god that had seen 1,000 civilizations rise and fall. Dr. Logan Pierce, tall, sharp-eyed, always unshakable, turned toward her with an expression she had never seen before. His face was pale. His jaw was tight. Fear clung to him like frost. "You need to see this," he said quietly. Evelyn approached the table, her steps slow and hesitant, as if each one drew her deeper into something she was no longer entirely ready for. The hologram rotated, displaying Atlas from every angle. It should have been an ordinary comet, unpredictable, chaotic, buffeted by gravity and solar winds, yet its trajectory highlighted in glowing blue was flawless. A line drawn with mechanical precision, a path that obeyed no natural law. "What are we looking at?" Evelyn asked. Mira Sullivan, the mission's chief astrophysicist, stood with her arms crossed tight against her chest. She was brilliant, too brilliant to ever let her voice tremble. And yet it did. "Atlas is altering course," Mira said. "By increments, as small as 2 too precise to be random, too consistent to be gravitational drift. A command, not a consequence." The room seemed to tighten around Evelyn. She stared at the Pathagoon first, at the delicate curve around Mars, then the clean arc that bypassed Earth entirely. Relief should have followed, but it didn't. Because Atlas wasn't moving away from them, it was moving towards something else. "Bring up its next projected burn," Evelyn whispered. Logan tapped a command. The hologram zoomed outward, rendering a map of the inner solar system. A thin red arc traced Atlas's future trajectory. It skimmed past Mars by only a few thousand kilometers, threading a celestial needle, then angled deliberately toward Jupiter. Jupiter, a giant of storms, a world wrapped in magnetic fury, but also a natural amplifier for electromagnetic signals, a place where a whisper could become a roar. Mira exhaled shakily. These corrections. We don't have the math for this, not from a comet, not even from debris controlled by whatever Atlas is, she swallowed. It is navigating. A silence heavier than gravity settled over the room. Evelyn felt something cold trace her spine. She had spent her entire career studying consciousness, how the brain created intention, meaning, choice. She had scanned neurons firing in patterns beautiful enough to make her cry. She had watched brains break, heal, and dissolve, but she had never once believed she would look at a celestial object and see purpose. Logan turned to her, voice low. This is intelligence, isn't it? Evelyn wanted to say no. She wanted to cling to probability, to chaos theory, to the comfort of cosmic randomness, but the universe had always been a strange place. Big enough for beauty, big enough for terror. And in that moment, she understood something she wasn't sure she was ready for. Atlas wasn't visiting the solar system. It was searching. She met Logan's eyes. Yes, I think it is. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Somewhere in the distance, a cooling fan kicked on, rattling faintly, but everything else was suffocatingly quiet. Let's rewind, Evelyn said, forcing her voice to steady. Show me the first correction. The hologram rewound, the blue trajectory shrinking into the narrow space near Mars. As the timeline hit zero, Atlas shifted so slightly that the human eye might have missed it. Then another, a rhythm, a pulse, a signal hidden in motion. Evelyn's chest tightened. It's communicating. Wheat whoa, Logan asked softly. Evelyn didn't answer. She didn't need to, because the real question wasn't who Atlas was speaking to, it was whether anyone else was speaking back. The next few hours passed in a blur. Evelyn found herself sitting at her workstation, fingers trembling as she typed command after command, pulling telemetry, analyzing heat signatures, decoding magnetic interference patterns. She had done similar work before, but never under the pressure of knowing that every number she watched could be the next step of an intelligence older, colder, and far more advanced than humanity. Her monitor flickered as a graph rendata representation of Atlas's magnetic emissions. There was a rhythm there, too. Faint, but deliberate. The same cycle that had appeared in the whisper-like signal from Station 07. The same language. Evelyn leaned in, eyes wide. Not random, not chaotic, coherent, as if Atlas were humming to itself. Or calling out. She touched her fingertip to the screen, tracing the pattern. Her heartbeat thrummed in her ears. She didn't notice Logan approach until he set a cup of untouched coffee beside her. You haven't moved in an hour, he said quietly. I can't, she replied. If I stop, even for a second, I'll lose the thread. She hesitated. This isn't just a trajectory. This is intentional behavior. Something is guiding Atlas. And whatever it is, far beyond us. Logan pulled up a chair beside her. We're outmatched. Yes, Evelyn whispered, on every imaginable level. Does that scare you? She looked at the hologram again, at the impossible precision of the trajectory, at the quiet grace with which Atlas wove through millions of kilometers of space, as though it had been born knowing the path. Yes, she said. It terrifies me. Logan's gaze softened. But you still want to understand it. Evelyn didn't respond. She didn't have to, because despite the fear tightening her ribs, despite the cold fist of dread settling beneath her sternum, she had never felt more alive. The unknown had been calling her for years, and now, for the first time, it was calling back. By late afternoon, the room was too warm. The lights felt too bright. The silence felt unnatural. The tension had grown thick enough to taste Every monitor now displayed the same projection. Atlas approaching the boundary of Jupiter's magnetic. Within 72 hours, it would reach the perfect amplification pointer cosmic vantage, where its whisper-like signal could erupt into something far more powerful. A transmission strong enough to cross light minutes. Maybe like if it's sending a message, Mira murmured. Someone might actually hear it. Logan stiffened. Someone or something. Evelyn felt her pulse spike. We need to assume the worst. If Atlas is a probe or a seed, or a device, this could be a preparation phase. A ping before the main event. You mean an invasion? Mira said quietly. Evelyn didn't speak. Instead, she played the signal again. The room filled with that eerie, trembling whisper, a sound too soft to be a voice, yet too structured to be noise. It caressed the air like a breath against the skin. Logan swallowed. I keep thinking, what if we weren't supposed to hear it? Evelyn's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? What if this isn't a signal to us? He said. What if it's a signal through us? The words hit her like a blow, because he was right. Atlas hadn't turned toward Earth. Atlas hadn't slowed as it passed the inner system. Atlas wasn't curious about them. It was using the solar system like a bridge, a stepping stone, a place to recharge, amplify, relay. Something was waiting on the other side of that transmission. Something vast enough that Atlas was only the first echo. Evelyn felt a chill seep into her bones. Pull up the last 4 hours of magnetic data, she said urgently. Logan tapped a series of commands. The hologram flickered, then unraveled into a three-dimensional waveform. A sharp spike cut through the center. Atlas had increased power. Why now? Mira whispered. Evelyn took a step back. Because it's ready. For what? But before Evelyn could answer, a piercing alarm cut through the room. Every screen went red. A single line of text flashed across the displays. New course correction detected. Trajectory altered. The hologram twisted, recalibrating the projection. Atlas was no longer angling merely toward Jupiter. Now it was aligning perfectly with one of Jupiter's polar magnetic funnels, an intense field line that shot far into deep space, like a cosmic beacon. Mira gasped. That's a launch vector. Evelyn whispered the word she wished she didn't understand. It's sending something. The lights flickered. The whisper signal deepened, growing denser. Richer, like a voice clearing its throat before speaking. Then the waveform changed again. Logan leaned in. Is it spelling something? Evelyn's heart pounded because she recognized the new pattern. It wasn't random. It wasn't chaotic. It was responding to air, a phrase emerging from the noise deliberately. A phrase she had heard only once before, in her nightmares after Station 07 first received the signal. A phrase that didn't belong to humanity. The whisper pulsed through the speakers again, soft yet undeniable. A greeting, a warning, or something in between. And when the translation rendered across the screen, Evelyn felt her blood run cold. We see you. The lights dimmed. The whisper faded. No one spoke, because they all felt it, an invisible gaze turning toward Earth with ancient patience and distant curiosity. Atlas had found them, and whatever intelligence guided it was no longer alone. Evelyn closed her eyes, a single thought ringing through her mind like a bell. We are already too late. And the chapter closed in silence. There were nights when Dr. Evelyn Cross wished she had never looked at the sky in the first place. Nights when the stars felt less like distant suns and more like silent witnesses observing, judging, waiting. Tonight was one of those nights. She stood alone inside the dim control room of Observatory Station 7, illuminated only by the trembling blue glow of the monitors. Atlas was there, hanging on her screens like an unblinking eye. Cold. Still. Watching back. Evelyn didn't blink. Couldn't blink. What she saw didn't allow it, because for the first time since Atlas entered the inner solar system, something had changed. Something had awakened. The signal earlier that evening had been faint, a whisper barely rising above cosmic background noise. But now, as she stared into the data streams, she saw it. A spike of energy blooming from Atlas's core. A burst of blue light. Not scattered sunlight. Not sublimating ice. It was too organized. Too rhythmic. Too deliberate. A reactor. Her pulse tightened in her throat. The fluorescent hum of the lab felt louder than usual, buzzing against her skin like static. She pressed her palm flat against the cold metal edge of the console, as another bloom of blue radiance flared from inside the object. Because that was what Atlas truly was. Not a piece of rock or ancient debris wandering through the void, but a ship, a machine. A scout, draped in the camouflage of a comet. The realization had arrived slowly over the past few days, but now it struck her with full force. A machine this large didn't simply exist by accident. Something built it. Something sent it. Something wanted it here. Atlas, what are you doing? She whispered, though the words felt absurd. Talking to a comet ship. Talking to a doorway. She zoomed in on the latest imagery from the telescope array. The faint surface bands of the obsit quenched chalky, matte, inert now, shimmered like metal heating from within. A pulse ran along its equator, faint but visible, as if some giant heart had begun to beat inside it. The symbolism wasn't lost on Air. Atlas was waking up. Behind her, the door hissed open. It was Noah Reynolds, the lead systems engineer. He didn't bother turning on the overhead lights. He saw her face glowing in the azure reflection of the monitors and knew something was wrong. You saw it too, didn't you? His voice was rough, scraped from too much coffee and not enough sleep. Ebeline nodded, swallowing the dryness in her throat. It's not ice. It's not chemical out. Noah, there's a power source inside that object. Yeah. He exhaled sharply through his nose. A big one. They both looked at the central monitor as another wave of blue light rippled through the vessel's core. There was no doubt anymore. Atlas wasn't reacting to sunlight or gravitational forces. It was activating. Noah stepped closer, lowering his voice. Evelyn, what if this is a countdown? She stiffened. A countdown. The words sank into her mind like a weight. She had considered possibilities, navigation corrections, communication attempts, structural realignments, but she had not yet allowed herself to consider that possibility, that what they were seeing was preparation, initiation, a sequence. Don't jump to conclusions, she whispered, though her voice lacked conviction. We don't know their intentions. There. It was the first time she had used that word out loud. Noah ran his hand through his hair. Intentions? Evelyn, that thing has a reactor. It has internal moving structures. It has precise trajectory control. We're not talking about microbes or random alien debris. Someone built this with a purpose. The screens bathed their faces in soft, eerie blue as another pulse rose within the vessel. This one was stronger, almost like the flare of a furnace being stoked. Evelyn swallowed. NASA will call an emergency meeting. They already did. Noah tapped the comms panel. They want you in the briefing room in 10 minutes, they said. They said you're leading the analysis now. You're the only one who's been able to model the signal's structure. Her stomach twisted. She didn't want this. She wanted to go back to studying neural patterns, human consciousness, safe mysteries. Not cosmic intruders. Not alien intelligence. Not something that stared back when you looked at it. But the choice wasn't hers anymore. She pulled up the latest reading. The interior temperature of the vessel was climbing. The electromagnetic flux lines inside the hull were rearranging, forming geometric patterns like circuitry being The vessel was changing shape from the inside. Evelyn's skin prickled. Noah. Look at frame. He tapped the command. The image changed. The moment it appeared, he inhaled sharply. There, beneath the comet-like crust, beneath the fissures and dust, was something smooth, metallic, angular, a hexagonal lattice of structures, machinery, architecture. The outer rocky shell wasn't natural. It was armor, and that armor was peeling back. Evelyn felt her breath catch. It's emerging. Noah's voice broke. It's shedding its disguise. The lights flickered. For a moment, the hum of the equipment dimmed, then surged back. The pulse from Atlas had interfered with their electronics. She took a step back. Did you feel that? Noah nodded. Electromagnetic interference. From millions of miles away, Evelyn. That reactor must be enormous. The overhead intercom buzzed sharply, making both of them flinch. Dr. Krauss, report to conference room 3 immediately. The urgency in NASA Director Harris's voice was unmistakable. Evelyn grabbed her tablet, but before she could turn to leave, something else happened. Every monitor in the observatory went dark. All at once. Block! Only for a second, but it was enough to freeze both of them in place. Then, all screens lit up again. But not with readings. Not with data. With Han Image. A symbol, a glowing blue circle intersected by 3 vertical lines. Evelyn didn't breathe. Noah. Is that from Atlas? He whispered, staring in disbelief. That came from Atlas. Her pulse hammered in her ears. She felt her chest tighten, panic and awe. Mixing like 2 incompatible chemicals. The symbol pulsed once, Tenbunny said, leaving the screens to return to their normal feeds. Evelyn grabbed the console edge to steady herself. It's communicating. Noah didn't answer. His eyes were glassy, unfocused, as though he wasn't fully in the room anymore. Noah! He blinked. I heard something. She stopped moving. Heard. He pressed his fingers to the side of his head. It was... He winced. A whisper. Her blood ran cold. Noah, that's impossible. The signal isn't even... I'm telling you what I heard. He looked at her, fear wetting the edges of his eyes. It wasn't random. It wasn't noise. It said something. What did it say? He swallowed hard. Each side, we're not alone. Silence filled the room, thick as fog. Evelyn felt a shiver trace her spine, not from cold, from the weight of understanding. Because deep inside, she believed him. Something about the symbol, the pulse, the awakening it, all aligned into a single terrifying realization. Atlas wasn't just waking up, it was listening. And now, it was speaking back. The intercom buzzed a second time, louder, more impatient. Dr. Krauss. Report immediately. She turned toward the door, heart pounding, but stopped when the screens flickered again just once, like an eyelid closing, then opening. Noah whispered, Evelyn, I don't think it's done. She nodded slowly. I know. They stepped out of the control room together, leaving the glowing blue pulse of Atlas behind them. As the door slid shut, Evelyn cast one last glance at the monitor. The vessel was brighter now, awakening faster, its shell splitting further. Something beneath it moving, expanding, as if preparing to show its true shape, as if preparing to show itself. And Evelyn, despite everything, despite the fear tightening her chest, despite the whisper echoing behind her, Ice felt something else rising inside her. The quiet, growing certainty that whatever waited inside Atlas was not meant to be seen by human eyes. Not yet, but soon, very soon. Very soon, the chapter ends here not with resolution, but with the undeniable truth that they have crossed a threshold they cannot return from. Atlas is awake, and it has noticed us. The room was colder than Evelyn expected. The kind of sterile chill that seeps into your bones and refuses to leave. Fluorescent panels above flickered intermittently, casting fragmented shadows on the faces of the world's top scientists, military advisors, and intelligence operatives. Atlas was no longer just a celestial curiosity. It was the subject of a clandestine summit that most people would never know existed. Only those seated here, in this windowless chamber deep beneath layers of reinforced concrete, understood the truth. Evelyn Cross sat at the edge of the long, obsidian conference table, her laptop open but untouched. Her fingers twitched, itching to analyze, to measure, to quantify, but not here. Not now. Here, the language was whispers, suspicions, and half-truths. The air smelled faintly of ozone and recycled air, like a warning in a bottle. Every eye in the room carried the same weight, disbelief barely tempered by professional composure. Director Harris stood at the head of the table. His gray hair reflected the harsh lighting like spun silver. He had that calm, deliberate way of speaking that Trident failed to mask urgency. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, voice echoing slightly in the chamber, "we're not here to debate. We're here to understand. Atlas is not natural. It's not a comet. It's something else. And it has been here before." Murmurs rippled across the table, subtle but tense. The phrase "something else" carried the weight of centuries of human imagination. Evelyn's stomach churned. Her pulse quickened. She glanced at Noah Reynolds, who was seated beside her, hands clenched over a tablet. His face was pale, lips pressed tight. The evidence they'd observed at Observatory Station 7 had been one thing, but the confirmation, the unspoken acknowledgement from multiple agencies, made it all terrifyingly real. Dr. Ranika Shah, an astrophysicist from India, cleared her throat. "Director Harris, with all due respect, if you're claiming Atlas is artificial, then what about the 1977 WOW signal? Are we suggesting a connection?" Harris's eyes flicked briefly toward Evelyn, as if expecting her to answer before he did. She felt a lump in her throat. "All the readings, the pulses, the internal reactor of Atlas, the whispers, Noah claimed to hear, they now all aligned with a terrifying pattern. It's more than a connection," she finally said, her voice steady but quiet. "The trajectory of Atlas, its activation, even the patterns in the electromagnetic signals, everything matches the region of space from which the WOW signal originated. Whoever or whatever sent that signal knew our solar system was here, and Atlas is the follow-up." Silence fell like a shroud. One of the military advisors, a sharp-eyed colonel from NORAD, finally broke it. "You're telling us a civilization, possibly intelligent, has been monitoring us for decades. 48 years. By your calculations." Evelyn swallowed, nodding. "At least. And they've marked this system. Atlas is not wandering. It is deliberate." The word deliberate hung in the air, heavy as lead. Every person in the room felt the gravity, as if Atlas itself had entered the chamber and was observing their reaction. She could see it in the subtle tensing of muscles, the quick flicks of eyes toward ceiling cameras, the slight lean forward as if bracing for some unimaginable revelation. Dr. Chun, a theoretical physicist from China, finally spoke, his voice almost a whisper. "If this is true, if Atlas is a sentinel, an artifact, or a probe, what does that mean for humanity? Are we defenseless?" Noah's hand shot out to rest on hers, a grounding touch she hadn't realized she needed. Evelyn felt the tremor in her own fingers. "Defenseless? Not exactly," she murmured. "We've been studying this for months. We've collected signals. We've watched it accelerate. But," she hesitated, the enormity of what she was about to admit weighing down her words, "we have no idea what its capabilities are. Nothing in human science or history can predict its actions." Colonel Richards's voice was sharp, slicing the room like a blade. "Then we're just sitting here, vulnerable. A cosmic visitor comes for a look. Or worse, and we can't fight it." Evelyn looked down at the polished black table, unable to meet his gaze. "We don't know if it's hostile," she said, her voice tight. "We don't know if it's curious, observational, or testing us." Director Harris slammed a hand lightly against the table, silencing the room. "Testing. That's exactly why we're here. Because the moment Atlas behaves like it, knows we're watching, that's when we'll understand the stakes." At that, Dr. Shah leaned forward, her dark eyes burning with intensity. "Are you suggesting Atlas has intelligence? Like a mind, or a purpose?" "Yes," Evelyn whispered, almost to herself, "and not just intelligence. Strategy?" The room went still. Phones buzzed, screens flickered, and the only sound was the hum of the air circulation. Every single person there knew deep down, that Atlas was no longer just an object in space. It was an entity capable of action and possibly decision. Decision. Noah exhaled quietly beside her, his thumb brushing over the edge of her hand. He had been the first to suspect it. And now, in this room full of the world's most powerful minds, that suspicion was a shared, unspoken terror. "Let's talk possibilities," Harris said, regaining control of the room. "First, its approach trajectory. Atlas has avoided Earth. It passed Mars, drew close to Jupiter. That's not random physics. That's navigation. Its course is precise, deliberate, and optimized. Second, the energy readings. We're seeing internal fluctuations, patterns, bursts of energy. It has a reactor, possibly more than one. Third, the signals. They're not noise. They're structured, repetitive, and communicating." Evelyn felt her heart hammer as she spoke. If you correlate these three factors, trajectory, energy output, signal structure, the most plausible conclusion is that Atlas has been deliberately sent to observe, possibly record, possibly test something in the solar system. And it's already been here 48 years ago, with the wow signal as a marker. Murmurs rose again, but this time less anxious, more stunned. One scientist whispered, "It's watching us." "Exactly," she said, a chill tightening her chest. "And I'm not convinced it's only observing. I think Atlas is learning, adjusting, reacting." Harris leaned back, steepling his fingers. "If what you're saying is true, then humanity is part of an experiment, or a study, or a test, and we're completely unprepared." The colonel shook his head, jaw tight. "So what do we do? How do we defend against something that's potentially smarter, faster, and more advanced than any technology we have?" Evelyn shook her head, fear and awe mingling in her chest. "We can't defend. Not yet. We can only observe, document, and hope we understand its intentions before it's too late." And even then, her voice dropped to a whisper, trembling. "Even then, we may not be ready." The room sank into heavy silence. The weight of it pressed on every chest like gravity intensified. Atlas was out there. And if it chose to act, there was nothing. No law, no weapon, no mind that could predict the outcome. Director Harris finally spoke, voice low, carrying an edge of grim resolve. "Prepare for all contingencies. And Dr. Cross, you're leading the observation team. Document everything, every signal, every movement. This is no longer science fiction. This is reality. And the world may never know what we've seen." Evelyn nodded, her hands trembling. She felt the cold metal of the table under her fingers, grounding her, as the images of Atlas's glowing blue core flashed through her mind. Its pulse, its symbol, the whispers. They weren't just anomalies, they were communication. They were a declaration. And for the first time, she realized this was bigger than the solar system, bigger than Earth, bigger than human comprehension. A civilization intelligent, ancient, precise had marked them, tracked them, possibly measured their progress for decades. And now, the observer had returned. Noah squeezed her hand briefly, drawing her attention back to the present. "Do you think we have a chance?" he whispered. Evelyn swallowed hard. Her eyes flicked back to the black, pulsing monitors. "I don't know, but we'll see. And we have to try." She rose from her chair, leaving the hum of the fluorescent lights and the echoes of fearful minds behind. The summit was over. Decisions were made. Observations would begin. Humanity had been noticed. And Atlas was waiting. The chapter ended not with answers, but with the terrifying, undeniable certainty that the game had begun and humanity might be a player they were not ready to confront. "Do you think humans have a chance to survive this?" Evelyn whispered to herself, her eyes lingering on the blacked-out windows. Subscribe to follow the next chapter. The room was silent, except for the low hum of computers and the faint tapping of keys. Evelyn Cross leaned over the console, her eyes scanning the decrypted signals that had once appeared as indecipherable static. Lines of code and undulating waveforms had finally revealed a pattern, something far more deliberate than anything human-made. The pulses, the rhythm, they weren't random. They formed a structure, a language embedded in the frequencies themselves. And now, for the first time, humanity was beginning to understand the intention behind Atlas. "Look at this," she whispered, her voice trembling with a mixture of awe and fear. Noah Reynolds stood behind her, his eyes wide, reflecting the blue-green glow of the monitors. "It's a map, but not to us. Not to Earth." Her fingers hovered above the keyboard, hesitant. "It's a map of vulnerabilities." The others in the clandestine observation chamber leaned in. Dr. Anika's brow furrowed. "Vulnerabilities? You mean we're being analyzed?" "Yes," Evelyn said, her gaze locked on the screen. The visual representation was startling. Dots and vectors connected in ways that made sense only to a mind unfathomably alien. There were marked points around the planets, lines indicating trajectories, and areas highlighted in a spectrum that suggested energy flux. "Look here," she pointed. The others in the clandestine observation chamber leaned in. Dr. Anika's brow furrowed. "Vulnerabilities? You mean we're being analyzed?" "Yes," Evelyn said, her gaze locked on the screen. The visual representation was startling. Dots and vectors connected in ways that made sense only to a mind unfathomably alien. There were marked points around the planets, lines indicating trajectories, and areas highlighted in a spectrum that suggested energy flux. "Look here," she pointed. "This is a magnetic field weakness in Jupiter's radiation belts. Here." She moved the cursor, a shadow corridor around Earth where radar coverage is minimal. "And here, an optimal approach vector for an object entering the inner system." The room fell into a heavy silence. The weight of the discovery pressed down like a physical force. It wasn't just observation. Atlas had been calculating, modeling, and strategizing. Every maneuver, every acceleration, every near miss had been executed with precision beyond human comprehension. It was a reconnaissance mission, no less sophisticated than any satellite humans had launched, but on a scale that dwarfed Earth's collective technology by orders of magnitude. Noah's hand brushed against Evelyn's shoulder. "So, it's not just intelligence," he said, his voice low. "It's engineering, strategic, calculated. They've been here before, watching, measuring, preparing." Evelyn nodded slowly, the pulse in her temples throbbing with the intensity of realization. "Yes. And we're only seeing a fragment. This signal, it's a message and a blueprint, not for communication in the sense we understand, but for mapping, for planning. Whoever sent Atlas knows the dynamics of our system intimately." Dr. Chun leaned forward, eyes dark and haunted. How long could a civilization like this have existed? To observe, to plot, to mark weaknesses across space. This ancient technology, possibly millions of years advanced. "And they were patient," Evelyn added, her voice almost reverent. 48 years ago. The wow. Signal, Atlas arrived now. The timing is deliberate. They marked our system long ago, and now they're returning to Ector to continue monitoring. Director Harris broke the tension with a grim expression. "We need to understand this from a defense standpoint. Map it, track it. If this civilization has the capacity to observe and navigate our system with precision, what else are they capable of? We cannot assume benevolence." Evelyn felt the weight of his words settle in her chest. The realization was suffocating. Humanity was a specimen, studied and mapped by forces it could scarcely begin to comprehend. The pattern emerging on the screens was almost hypnotic. Lines of probability, vectors of energy, points of exposure, and paths that could be exploited. It was as if Atlas were teaching them, subtly, in a language of light and frequency, revealing the weaknesses of their own planetary defenses. Noah leaned closer, his voice tense. "And if they decide we're dangerous or irrelevant?" His hand unconsciously flexed into a fist. "We don't even know how to respond." Evelyn swallowed hard. her pulse hammering in her ears. Then we adapt. But first, we need to understand, and this is just the beginning. Atlas is the probe, the first layer of contact. Behind it is a civilization with intellect and technology that we can't even measure. The screens shifted, revealing a new layer of data. A series of calculations and waveforms suggested energy concentration points where solar radiation, gravitational pull, and planetary alignment created natural corridors through which a vessel could traverse undetected. Evelyn traced a line with her finger, feeling a shiver crawl down her spine. They've found the blind spots, the safe passages. This isn't random navigation. This is planning an approach strategy. Dr. Shah's lips parted slightly, voice caught between awe and fear. Do you realize what this implies? Whoever built Atlas, they can map, monitor, and anticipate every movement in our solar system. They know us, our defenses, our blind spots, our patterns. The weight of their words settled over the room like a storm. Evelyn felt the tension coil in her chest, a tightness that mirrored the cold blue pulse emanating from Atlas' core, as observed weeks earlier. It wasn't just observation anymore. It was evaluation, preparation, and perhaps judgment. Evelyn turned her attention back to the screens, tracing the intricate connections that formed what could only be described as a celestial blueprint of vulnerability. We're not the first system they've analyzed, she said softly, and we won't be the last. But we might be the first they're actively observing. Atlas is the interface, the scout, and we're the subject. Noah leaned closer, whispering, almost afraid to breathe the words. Do you think they know what we're capable of? I think they do, Evelyn replied, her voice tight with the tension of knowledge. And I think every calculation they've made is designed to determine exactly how we might respond or fail to respond. Director Hara's gaze, Ardenet. Then we need to ensure that humanity has a chance. Every scientific resource, every telescope, every probe they must be directed at Atlas. Document every signal, every movement, every anomaly. If this civilization is advanced enough to send Atlas, we cannot leave anything to chance. The room erupted in controlled activity. Specialists at work deciphering frequencies, cross-referencing observational data, and calculating trajectories. The air was thick with the electric tension of understanding the unimaginable. Evelyn's mind raced, connecting every anomaly, every signal, every observation from Atlas approach. The patterns were deliberate. The strategy was clear. Humanity was under study, and Atlas was the first messenger of the intelligence behind it. Hours passed, the room dimming under the relentless hum of technology and the flickering glow of monitors. Evelyn felt the weight of exhaustion pressing on her eyelids, but she couldn't stop. Every signal mattered. Every pulse could reveal a fragment of their purpose. And the more she deciphered, the more terrifying the scope became. Finally, a faint vibration ran through the room, a low-frequency hum that resonated through the walls and the floors. The signal from Atlas had shifted. Subtle but unmistakable. Lines of data began to ripple across the screens, forming new vectors, new highlighted points. Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. "It's adapting?" she whispered. "It's adjusting to our observation." Noah placed a hand on her shoulder. "So, it knows we're watching." "Yes," she said, voice trembling. "And it's responding." Director Harris exhaled, his jaw tight. "Prepare for all contingencies. If Atlas is intelligent, and the civilization behind it is watching, then every decision we make now will be observed, analyzed, and perhaps countered." Evelyn felt a chill wash over her. The secret summit had revealed the unthinkable. Atlas was no longer a distant object in the sky. It was a probe of an advanced civilization, mapping, calculating, and learning from humanity itself. And the more they understood, the smaller and more vulnerable Earth seemed. As the team worked late into the night, Evelyn could not shake the image of Atlas, hovering silently in the void, its glowing core pulsing like a heartbeat, the whispers of its signal threading through space. They were being watched, measured, and assessed, and behind the light and data lay a civilization so far beyond their comprehension that fear and awe blended into one. She closed her eyes for a brief moment, imagining the intelligence behind Atlas. Millions, perhaps billions of years of technological evolution, capable of sending a vessel like this to another star system, capable of calculating planetary vulnerabilities with surgical precision. It was more than just extraterrestrial. It was a godlike presence, silent, patient, and aware. And then, with a shiver, Evelyn realized that understanding Atlas was only the first step. The next step, understanding the civilization behind it, was a challenge humanity might not survive. But they had no choice. Observation, analysis, preparation, they were all they had. Noah whispered, almost to himself, "Do you think they're judging us?" Evelyn looked at him, eyes reflecting the pale light of the monitors. "I don't know," she said softly, "but one thing is certain. They've been here before, and now they're back, and we are in the spotlight." The chapter closed on the humming monitors, the intricate maps of vulnerabilities, and the quiet dread that settled like a shadow over everyone in the room. Atlas was no longer a comet, no longer a mystery. It was a messenger, and the civilization behind it was watching. "Do you think humanity will survive this?" Evelyn whispered to the empty room. Subscribe to follow the next chapter. The date was December 19th, and the sky over the northern hemisphere had transformed into a surreal canvas of cobalt and Evelyn Cross stood on the observation deck of the high-altitude observatory in Norway, her breath forming misty clouds in the frigid night air. Her fingers, gloved and trembling, rested lightly on the rail, but she couldn't bring herself to look away from the spectacle above. Atlas had arrived at its closest approach, and the world, unknowingly, was witnessing something extraordinary and terrifying. "Everyone," a voice crackled over the encrypted communications channel. "Do not adjust your instruments. The readings are real." It was Noah Reynolds, his voice taut with disbelief. He had been coordinating the global network of observatories and satellites, but even he had never anticipated the scale of what they were seeing. The blue light radiated from Atlas like a living pulse, spreading across the curvature of Earth's shadow. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't static. It shimmered and flowed, moving across the upper atmosphere, bending the edges of clouds, refracting through the aurora, and illuminating snowy peaks with an unearthly glow. The phenomenon was so intense that cameras designed for astrophotography were struggling to adjust. Human eyes, Evan realized, were ill-equipped for such luminescence. Her heart raced, a mixture of scientific thrill and primal fear. The monitors in front of her registered something impossible. Atlas was emitting an electromagnetic pulse, subtle but powerful enough to interfere with global GPS signals. Navigation systems wavered. Military radars were momentarily blind. Ships in the North Atlantic reported anomalies. Airplanes diverted from their autopilot routes, and satellites experienced microsecond delays in telemetry enough to rattle engineers around the world. And then, the inexplicable happened. Evelyn's own instruments, calibrated to detect submillimeter variations in light and radiation, detected movement, something detaching from Atlas. At first, she thought it was a visual artifact, a lens flare or a projection of the aurora. But the movement was deliberate. Hundreds of objects, smaller than Atlas, yet uniform in shape and size, radiated from its core. They darted into the darkness of space around the comet-like body, a swarm of mechanical or biological drones. No one could say for sure. They're not meteoroids, Evelyn whispered to herself, her voice barely audible over the hum of the observatory's machinery. They're organized, intelligent. Her hands shook as she tapped on the holographic interface, isolating the swarm formed patterns, moving in formation, splitting, and regrouping in a choreography that seemed both alien and purposeful. They weren't random. They were scouting, observing, and maybe even communicating. Noah's voice pierced her concentration. "Evelyn, are you seeing this? I have satellites confirming multiple objects detaching from Atlas. Hundreds, maybe thousands." His tone was taut, almost panicked. "We're tracking them, but this is unprecedented. It's as if Atlas has deployed an army." Evelyn felt a cold knot of dread in her stomach. The civilization behind Atlas had engineered these probes, whatever they were, too leave the ship and perform reconnaissance across the inner solar system. Their sheer number suggested capability beyond comprehension. Self-replication, adaptive intelligence, perhaps even autonomous decision. And the purpose? She couldn't say, yet instinctively, she knew Earth was under observation on a scale humanity had never before experienced. The observatory's alarms blinked erratically. The electromagnetic pulse from Atlas was fluctuating, interfering with the sensitive equipment. Even the protective Faraday shielding wasn't entirely mitigating the effects. Evelyn could hear the low hum reverberating through the structure. A vibration felt in her chest more than in her ears. It was an almost physical sensation, the sound of something immense waking in the void. The heartbeat of a civilization, light years ahead of humanity. She turned to the global feed, watching images from telescopes in Japan, the US, Chile, and South Africa. Every screen showed the same eerie spectacle. A radiant blue atlas surrounded by a swarm of objects, moving like a living entity. Analysts attempted to label them: particles, ice fragments, solar debris. But Evelyn knew better. She had been watching Atlas long enough to understand its behavior. And this was deliberate. Each drone followed trajectories calculated to probe the magnetic fields, gravitational currents, and radar shadows of Earth and its neighboring planets. It was as though Atlas itself had become a hive mind, sending out scouts to gather intelligence and prepare for something unknown. The psychological impact was immediate. Social media feeds erupted with reports of strange lights and sky anomalies, though authorities tried to maintain calm. News anchors stumbled over their words. Pilots reported instruments failing mid-flight. Scientists argued whether this was a natural phenomenon or something engineered. And in the middle of it all, Evelyn and Noah sat frozen before the feed, the weight of understanding crushing them. "I can't believe what I'm seeing," Noah muttered, rubbing his temples. "This isn't exploration. This is deployment. They're taking positions, mapping, testing us." Evelyn's thoughts raced. She thought of the WOW signal from 1977, the anomalies, Atlas acceleration, the blue glow, and now these drones. Every piece of data coalesced into a horrifying pattern. "It's the civilization behind Atlas," she said quietly. "They're active. They've been observing for decades, maybe centuries. And now they're engaging." Outside, the blue light intensified. Evelyn squinted through the observatory windows, seeing the northern sky painted with a surreal luminescence. It was beautiful and terrifying, a reminder that the cosmos was alive with forces beyond comprehension. The drones swirled around Atlas, splitting and converging in patterns that almost resembled written language, a visual code that humanity could not yet decode. They were performing a reconnaissance ballet in real time, assessing the vulnerabilities of every radar installation, every communication satellite, every strategic target across the planet. Suddenly, the lights flickered. The electromagnetic pulse surged. Evelyn felt the hairs on her arms stand on end. Instruments beeped erratically, some failing entirely. "The interference, it's escalating," she said, her voice shaking. "They're testing our systems." Noah nodded grimly. "It's a probe swarm. Atlas isn't just mapping. It's assessing defenses, calculating our capabilities, our weaknesses." For the first time, a visceral fear gripped Evelyn. The drones weren't just monitoring, they were analyzing, judging, preparing. Humanity was suddenly aware of its insignificance, and the unknown intelligence behind Atlas had demonstrated it with terrifying clarity. She could feel the collective gaze of the cosmos pressing down, a consciousness far beyond human scale. And it wasn't distant. It was active, immediate, and observing every reaction. Hours passed, and the swarm dispersed into the night sky, their blue glow fading but leaving lingering effects. Communications grids stabilized, GPS signals corrected themselves, and military radar systems regained partial control. But the memory remained. The sky had been alive, moving, watching, and somewhere in the void, Atlas pulsed, its core still glowing faintly, a heartbeat of the intelligence that had sent these emissaries. Noah finally exhaled, a sound mingling relief and disbelief. "Do you?" Do you think they intended to scare us? Evelyn shook her head slowly, her gaze still on the monitors. This isn't about fear. It's about observation, testing, and preparation, and whatever is behind Atlas. It's patient, calculated, and far beyond us. As the world struggled to comprehend what had happened, Evelyn knew one thing with certainty. Humanity had been exposed to the first true signs of a technologically superior civilization. The Blue Night would be remembered not as a meteorological event, but as the moment the veil of cosmic anonymity was lifted, revealing watchers in the void who were now intimately aware of Earth and its inhabitants. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, typing a message to the global network. Track everything. Document every anomaly. Do not underestimate what we have seen tonight. Atlas is not a comet. Atlas is intelligence, and the swarm, whatever they are, is. Our first contact, outside, the auroras danced in unnatural patterns, mimicking the pulse of Atlas, the sky a living testament to the event. Evelyn felt the cold air bite at her cheeks, the adrenaline surging through her veins, and the silent, unspoken question hung over the world. Why have they come now? And what will they do next? Her last thought before leaving the observation deck was almost a prayer. We have been seen, and they are patient. Subscribe and follow the next chapter, she murmured to herself, voice lost in the vast, cobalt sky. The night is only beginning. The world had barely absorbed the terror and wonder of the Blue Night when new reports began flooding in from every continent. Evelyn Cross sat in a dimly lit operations center beneath the mountains of Switzerland, monitors casting ghostly reflections across her pale, tense face. It had been less than 24 hours since Atlas released its swarm of drones. Yet humanity was already seeing the first consequences, though what they were witnessing barely hinted at the scale of what was to come. They don't make a sound, whispered Dr. Marcus Hawley, a biologist turned analyst. As he scanned high-resolution footage from a remote rainforest in the Amazon, the camera had captured hundreds of strange insect-like entities slipping between the canopy. The forms, almost transparent, barely distinguishable from shadows. And there's more. They move with precision, recording, scanning every living thing. His voice trembled, the edges of disbelief fraying his usual calm. Evelyn leaned over his shoulder, watching the footage. The entities were not attacking. Not yet. They were observers. They moved as though driven by a collective intelligence, their segmented bodies sliding through foliage with inhuman fluidity. Birds scattered at their approach, but no creature suffered injury. Yet the feeling of wrongness was palpable. The jungle was alive with the hum of unseen cameras, the silent gaze of a superior intelligence cataloging every detail. They're surveying the biosphere, Evelyn said, her voice low, almost reverent in its fear. Every ecosystem, every animal, every microbe. They're mapping it. Her fingers hovered over the holographic controls, expanding the visual feed to overlay satellite imaging. The entities were everywhere, emerging from oceans, drifting through forests, skimming over cities. They moved with terrifying efficiency, avoiding detection from humans whenever possible, their design perfected to observe without trace. Outside, the Atlantic waves reflected the dim light of approaching storms. Sensors on buoys reported anomalies, underwater patterns of movement, strange undulations in currents. Deep-sea cameras revealed glinting shapes, darting silently through the dark, measuring and recording. Dolphins reacted with erratic leaps, sensing something foreign in the water. Submersible drones from research stations captured glimpses of biomechanical forms. But by the time teams approached, nothing remained. It was as if the entities had never existed at all. The psychological toll on humanity began almost immediately. Reports of missing livestock, animals behaving strangely, and inexplicable shifts in migratory patterns triggered alarm. Governments attempted to calm citizens, insisting these were natural phenomena. Yet panic grew as videos, live streams, and images circulated online. Social media erupted with speculation, and conspiracy theories spread like wildfire. Evelyn, watching it unfold, realized there was a deeper horror beneath the surface. A civilization capable of observing the entirety of Earth without ever touching it, cataloging weaknesses, habits, and patterns on a scale no human intelligence could compete with. At the observatory, monitors flickered with footage from urban centers. In Tokyo, New York, São Paulo, and Lagos, entities were gliding across rooftops, slipping down alleyways, moving through the shadows of parks and plazas. Security cameras caught them for mere frames, a shimmer of movement, a flash of something non-human. By the time authorities investigated, only empty streets and frightened witnesses remained. They left no footprints, no fingerprints, no physical trace, only the eerie impression that every living thing had been meticulously studied. Evelyn rubbed her temples, trying to process the enormity of it. "This is reconnaissance," she said. "Phase 1. They're not here to destroy. Not yet. They are gathering, understanding, cataloging everything that breathes, moves, or lives." The observatory's hum seemed louder. The vibrations in the floor, a subtle echo of the collective pulse she had felt when Atlas released its swarm. It was the quiet before an unimaginable storm. Meanwhile, the media dubbed the phenomena the unwelcome entities. Headlines read like science fiction, yet every report came from verified sources. Footage, eyewitness accounts, instrument readings. Citizens described feeling watched, an invisible presence that followed them through forests, oceans, and cities. Animals exhibited signs of acute stress, almost as if they sensed a superior predator surveying the planet. Even military personnel admitted in confidential logs that sensors failed to detect these objects until they were directly observed. Marcus pointed to another feet stretch of desert in northern Africa. The entities moved across dunes, scanning, recording. Sand shifted but did not give way beneath them. Instruments recorded a subtle electromagnetic pulse, as if they drew energy from the environment itself. Evelyn noticed a pattern. Wherever the entities passed, local electronic systems experienced minor disruptions. GPS, satellite communication, even basic weather instruments displayed temporary anomalies. It was subtle, precise, a signature of a civilization intimately aware of the planet's technological frameworks. She thought of the drones Atlas had deployed. The similarity was undeniable. The entities were extensions of the same intelligence, operating with autonomy but connected, functioning as scouts and analysts. It was a coordinated effort, a planetary survey designed to gather intelligence without alerting humanity fully. Evelyn realized with a chill that this phase of observation could continue indefinitely. There was no rush for the intruders. They had the patience of millennia. Her mind raced. What were they cataloging? Biometrics of species? Human population distributions? Natural resource locations? Environmental anomalies? Every sensor, every camera feed, every satellite became a node in an alien network. The entities were everywhere and nowhere, slipping in and out of detection, leaving humanity with only glimpses, a creeping awareness of being studied. As the sun set over Europe, Evelyn noticed the phenomena intensify. The entities clustered at key geographic points: dense forests, critical urban centers, deep oceanic trenches. They radiated subtle light, occasionally pulsing as though communicating through wavelengths beyond human perception. Marcus observed that the pulses synchronized across continents, suggesting a global hive mind linking them, a nervous system spanning oceans, mountains, and cities. "It's mesmerizing and horrifying," Marcus said quietly, his eyes glued to the display. "They move in silence, yet their presence reshapes everything. Even the animals respond humans." His gaze met Evelyn's, full of the weight of realization. "We're not just observed, we're cataloged." Evelyn shivered. The entities did not require violence to assert dominance. The sheer fact of their observation created vulnerability. Humanity was under scrutiny in its entirety. Every microbe, every human, every insect meticulously recorded. The blue pulse of Atlas in the night sky had heralded this moment, the first stage of Earth's cataloging by an intelligence far beyond comprehension. Ours passed. The entities receded into the shadows of forests, oceans, and cities, leaving only traces detectable through advanced sensors. Altered electromagnetic fields, faint thermal anomalies, Slight atmospheric disturbances, humanity could not fully perceive them with naked eyes. The planet had been surveyed, but it was impossible to determine whether the data had been transmitted back to Atlas or stored for a later phase. Evelyn felt a cold clarity settle in her mind. Humanity had been awakened to the knowledge that it was neither alone nor unobserved, and that the first contact was not an invitation, it was a study. In the quiet of the Swiss observatory, Evelyn leaned back in her chair, hands gripping the edges, staring at the fading feeds. Marcus sat beside her, exhausted, silent, the enormity of what they had witnessed pressing down like a physical weight. Neither spoke. 4 words were inadequate. The world had glimpsed the first phase of an invasion they could not yet comprehend. An intelligence that respected no borders, no species, no human conceit of control. Subscribe and stay with us for the next chapter. Evelyn finally said, almost as a whisper to the monitors, the hum of the facility echoing the alien pulse she had felt hours ago. We've only just begun to understand what we are truly facing. They are not hostile yet, but the next phase may be unstoppable.